Well, hello, everybody. Whoever is listening to this, this is Raven with
With Anna
uh,
Kachkar.
yeah, Raven Janelle. Raven needs its own name until I get an official last name that I like to go with it. But anyway, and we this is our very first recording of a podcast. And it's really funny because Anya thinks that it was her idea, and I think it was my idea.
That's so lovely. Yeah. I think like I approached you from the very beginning of our talks and conversations with like it would be cool to do something together. But then when you finally came and told me, "Oh, let's do it." And I was like, "Yeah." And I also felt like it's totally your idea. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
and I remember, my memory, right? This is what's great. So this is a conversation. The context is human design. Um, we both have I have an open G center. Anya has a undefined G center. So we're calling it the OG girls, open G girls, but really the topic is human design. And we're really here, we'll do some teaching, we'll include some keynotes, I'll put it that way, but really the bigger context is to share experiences because we all are unique. And at some point we'll have other people on because we don't know everything. We're not a projector, we're not a this, we're not a that. We have some similarities and differences. So just to get the full flavor of what it is to live this through whomever we end up talking to, including with each other. And our topic today, rightfully so, is the G Center. And before we came on together, I looked at our composite chart, and it's the only undefined center between the two of us. So it seems quite perfect.
Yeah, that's so cool. So we are what we are looking at. We are looking at OpenG, and yeah. And when we were looking at the topic of our first podcast, it was like, let's start with the root center. Yeah, let's start, and then like G center. Yeah, let's look at G center. There was like so much energy because when you carry it, when you live through it, there is so much juice. And I do think open and when I have received my personal reading and when John Martin looked at it at my chart and he said, "Yeah, I actually think it's not a solar plexus your biggest conditioning, it's your open J's." And later when I found out what it means, yeah, totally. Yeah. Throughout all my life, every single thing that we say about OpenG, that has been my life. Exactly.
This challenges, and I think as we get into, certainly for me, getting into the experiment, the joys of it, and but very differently. So we met when you were doing John's Jedi training, and I
Yes.
was co-pilot. That's what I called myself. I was, in the background doing whatever I was doing in partnership with him. And what I remember is I was so happy you had the 3457. That's what I was happy about when I first saw that because I hadn't met anybody yet.
Yeah, this was so exciting for me to relate to you because you're 6'2", I'm 6'2", and both individual. And as we started speaking later, and I realized that you have OpenG, it was like, oh my God. And of course, through the whole Jedi training, which also I remember, I particularly feel very, very lucky that I have been in that group because it has been the last group that John Martin did.
Mhm.
And I was literally jumping on the train as it was already going away because I didn't let's say I didn't know about all the formal thing and the training. And after just having a reading with him, he just mentioned, I'm doing this training. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm doing it with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Same for
So,
me a year earlier. I was in the one before you. I was in that training before you, and I had moved to Sedona, Arizona, And a friend of mine, I think the woman who introduced me to human design must have shown me John Martin's videos at some point, because in the local cafe, which was right below the Human Design Center that Marianne Winiger had opened up, was a cafe, and I'm a cafe girl. So I think a couple of weeks after I got there, John came in and I was like, oh, right, like excited. And then he looked at me like, who the fuck are you? Anyway, that was the beginning. And then at some point, because I thought I had, if I had a reason, right? Our mind likes to give reasons for movement, but it was to be hanging out with Marianne, and she's also 6'2". So previously it was all virtual, and I definitely could feel myself sinking into my body in conversations around her. But then when I started talking to John and he was doing some classes on Thursdays, I just, at some point I said, I think I came here for you. So I got into the class, and then became a partner. But that's not what we're here for. That's kind of our different histories with him and how we met.
How we met, how I was looking. I mean, you and John definitely were my role models, and John is a projector, so you always look at him and you also learn what is projector. But looking up to you, it was like, oh, this is a generator role model. And for me, it was so natural, like, writing and talking and keeping in touch. And the spark that I had about a year ago, just to speak with you already on a friendly note, because I think when I started Jedi training, it was still looking like really just like at a teacher or somebody who already leaves it. But I was so lucky that that I wrote you in the first place, and then we hit it up with the friendship and sharing. And from the sharing, I am still very delighted that we as we shared, we were able to see, oh, and I'm feeling, and this is how it is, and I resonate, and I also feel like this. So all these talks, and yeah, I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm so happy that we can look at the OpenG today and also share and let other people see, because this is how I resonated the most, when there were examples, when people were saying in the Jedi training how they feel about things. This is how it actually worked for me the most. So I also hope that there are some open Gs and also fixed Gs, because actually, whether defined or undefined center, it can work both ways. The fixed G can also work in the wrong way. The open G can be conditioned. And then, knowing about the G center is very important for everyone, as it is here in our center, holds the magnetic monopole, represents self-love. What else?
Direction, purpose.
Direction. Yeah.
The magnetic monopole you said, I just was rereading, and it's really funny because I don't really connect with spiritual. Like that word to me is what? But apparently there's an aspect of that there too. And it is about love of self. When it's open or undefined, it often looks like, where am I going to get love out there? I don't know what it is to have it defined, but there's a fixedness. That's all it means, is there's however it is defined, the person is going to be fixed in their orientation to love or direction.
The way I see those who are fixed is that when they talk about themselves, when they present themselves, there is certain, the voice that speaks, I am, and I'm doing this, and this is what I like. And there is a certain, I don't know, steadiness in this that I personally never experience it 100%, because I can be this and I can be that, and I can like this, but I'm not so sure if it's like I really like this all the time, or maybe it has been different in the past. So I don't have this confidence, steadiness, let's say, steadiness to say exactly what I am, because I know that I can be a few different things. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that my mind really likes to do, and it's still happening, which really kind of pisses me off. Like, really, can you not stop doing that? But whatever, right?
Mhm.
This is the thing. I mean, it's, awareness is really what this is about. And sometimes, I mean, I will still put myself in hot water. My thing is, I'm a this now, and I don't not only say, declare this is what I'm doing now. My work at this point seems to be the major thing my mind is trying to pin down,
Mhm.
when truthfully there are many flavors of expression here. Uh,
Like you're saying that you are identifying with one thing at a time, and sometimes at a certain point of time you're identifying yourself with one thing. Mhm.
yeah, but what happens is I did it just maybe 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and I've been responding to interests in what I call my previous work, which is to support people in business. But I don't just say, oh, I do this as well and wait for the conversation. I go ahead and build a website.
Mm.
And I'm very into that. And then, I announce it, and somebody in human design saw my announcement, who I have it was, I'll say, one of my mentors. And then I was like, oh no, she's gonna think that I'm, like, I sold it. I mean, it's just
Oh.
crazy. The mind will just, and I have to let it go, because first of all, it's what I had happened. Yes, I am doing this. Yes, I did start a website. But it's, for me, I'm personally happy to have this to do with you, because it is another aspect of my expression and really supports everything. What I want to say about you, because, in my observations, why I think this is a great place to start, is I've been, we have both been individually just moving around, and you've been moving around a lot, and you're following, your response, and going to different places and experiencing different places and saying, oh, this feels like it. Whoops, it did and
Mhm.
no longer does. But that's one of the keynotes of having an undefined or open G center. There is no the one
There
place.
is no
There's
one.
sampling places.
There is no one place, and this is true. I think I have lived in really different places and really different countries, and since I was young, I was, um, yeah, like it always feel maybe something is wrong with me. Yeah, like there are
Right. Well,
people.
that's what society says.
Yeah, because there are people, they live in the same place, and I have had people telling me in my face, place doesn't matter, because all matters is what you do, and if you do the right thing, then every place would be right for you. And from a very early age, it felt for me that place matters, and as we say in the design, my geometry aligns with a place, and if the place doesn't feel right,
Mhm.
and some people also, like in a reading, in like they say only room matters or only the house matters. So I don't know, maybe that is true also for some people. For me it has been countries.
Mm.
So at certain point a certain country feels right, and I meet the people and things happen, and then suddenly I start feeling like nothing is happening with me in this place. And oh boy, this is the open G, right? When you from your mind start looking for, where am I going to go? Like, what is my next destination? Where is my next place? So the only thing that I learned, not the only thing, but the thing that I learned, that I have to calm my mind down, and like knowing that, yeah, I already feel that this place doesn't work for me anymore, but
Mhm.
just like be there, be present, do your thing, and then the bus is passing by, which is like the person is passing by, and something happens, and I do feel this is the trajectory, this is the geometry, and I realize it as I am on the bus, like I'm already
Mm.
going somewhere. I have
Mhm.
responded, my direction has changed, and looking back at the countries and places I have changed, honestly, I never chose them from my mind. They were like, I lived in Qatar, I lived in China. There is nothing in me that was, oh, let's go to China or let's go there. No, life, and this is also what it says in the book. Life will take you places. The people will be the one who will be taking you on their geometry. They will be representing the direction.
Mhm.
So this is what happened to me. I remember when I start feeling that, I most probably would like to travel, or I would, but then I'm like hesitant. And then very often happens that someone tells me, okay, I'm going there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going with you. Or somebody can tell me, oh, there is a direct bus from here to there. And I'm like, okay, so now I know how I am going.
Mm. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so one of the things, so I started, I guess without, I started to release myself from knowing much about the future, except for, oh, it's time to leave here now. And I also want to say, background, we're both generators. So we respond, and that's the thing. I think our response to life and what people bring us is what takes us places. But I let go of what's next. When did I leave Arizona? 2020. I left Arizona in 2020 on the road, not knowing where I was going. And then I'm posting what I'm doing on Instagram, and somebody who I knew from Human Design Unleashed, just by name, was watching me on Instagram, and I was close to Portland, Oregon. She said, "Are you coming here?" I said, "Yeah." So we met. That's, I'm not going to do the whole story, but that's how I ended up in Portland, Oregon. And she at some point, she and her husband invited me into their home, and I was like, "Uh-huh." And it was great because the timing was perfect. And the other thing that I guess I never picked it up before, as generators, this was like, oh, we respond, and whatever we respond to is good for a while, especially as a pure
Yes.
generator, not manifesting generators.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the time is coming to an end, there's a feeling of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
There's this
Mm-hmm.
moment, but the guidance is that, when you've entered it correctly, the stuck is correct. And I've
Yes.
kind of come to recognize that when my mind starts bitching about a place, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that the place is wrong, it's that the time is coming to an end. And when I
Yes.
was with these people and
Mm-hmm.
actually looking for an apartment, I thought I had maybe lived in 30 places, but I counted 42. So I'm now in
42.
I'm in my 45th place of where I put my head for more than a week. So, my poor son, he's a defined G. He had to, when he was a kid, he had to follow mama. But I mean, I stabilized for 5 years twice while he was in school, but then I went back to my movement ways.
This is interesting. So I have OpenG, and what they have done with me, my grandma and my mom, yeah, they kept bringing me by bus from one city to another. There were like two cities, yeah. So I was traveling between my grandma and my mom all the time. So
Mm,
actually, when I was later on the road, yeah, like when in my like what after 20 years, I started asking, why am I on the road? And I'm like, yeah, I was always on the road, like even when I was little,
mm,
it was my grandma place, it was mom's home, and I was always, oh, I want to go to grandma. Okay, now I'm back to my house. And interestingly enough, even so talking about places, correct places, yeah? Like I am born in one city. I'm born in Kharkov, Ukraine.
okay.
But my grandmother's house is in Dnipro, so I recognize my home as Dnipro, and I recognize my grandmother's home as home. And I ended up even bringing my defined G mom to this home because that's the right place for me. That's what is home for me, not even the place where I'm born.
Mhm.
So this is interesting. And I want to go back to what you said at the very beginning when there was a expectation from you by the person who knows only a part of you, and there is a certain expectation of what you do or what you don't do. So in our Bible, the guide to human design, the famous book, yeah, there is an example there, if I'm not mistaken. There is an example that OpenG have such different friends because we're open, right? We can
Yeah.
fit with all the different people geometrically, mechanically, with all different sorts of people. So
Mhm.
there is this joke, like if you call everyone to your birthday party, everyone you know, the drug dealer will meet the policeman. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so the way, yeah, that recently happened when I went through my divorce. I had a divorce party on
Yeah.
Zoom,
Mm.
and I invited people I had relationships women who I had relationships at different points throughout my life. Maybe two of them knew each other.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, and I recognize that, like, when I lived in Marin County when I was a young woman,
Mhm.
I had two good friends, but they met each other, but they were not.
They were not clicking exactly.
Yeah, so and sampling and collecting people, and John Martin called it going on rides. And some rides are better than others. I mean,
Mhm.
that's one of the things again, you sent me this great article. I don't know where it came from. Your Open G Center is an incredible ally, and how we can get kind of swooped up
Yeah.
by romance and whatever else. And the last time that happened for me, the person had a defined G, has a defined
Mhm.
G, and I fell in full-heartedly, but my body was actually telling me, it took 2 years for me to wake up to what it was telling me, but it was telling me this is not, I got a lot out of it. At the same time, I was nervous almost all the time,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
always a little on edge. And one of the statements is, you get to be your full self.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody is correct. And it's interesting, I'm
Mhm.
living in a place right now where I would say I'm not with my people. But I'm here. That's the other thing. There's no right or wrong. Some experiences I think we go through experiences for different purposes. I mean, not
Exactly.
everything is roses. When you respond, it's not always because it's going to be great. Sometimes it's just what needs to happen.
What I also want to say, that open G meeting all the defined Gs or other open Gs, as we are meeting and geometrically we are aligning with them, we find out all those different parts of
Mm,
our self-expression. So with this person, I could feel a bit more artistic, and with this
mhm,
person, my God. So the most recent experience is that I can be a little bit messy, like letting things, without their place and everything. So the last the last relationship that I had allowed me to fully and completely accept this part of myself, because the person was also a bit messy,
mm,
and I was absolutely not judgmental, and I was like, oh, finally there is somebody just like me who's not gonna tell me to put everything in order. And even, it was wonderful, just like and meeting this part of me in somebody else, and like engaging it and like accepting it. And so yeah, I think the ability of the open G to see, mm, as we know, yeah, open center in the end gives you the ultimate ability of this center.
mhm,
And I think the ultimate ability of the open G is love. And so through all the small pieces and accepting all these parts, this is how the self-love exactly coming. So you see all those parts, but they are actually your parts. This is what I realize. I see all these parts in other people. And by loving and accepting them, I'm also incorporating this in me, and I'm loving and accepting it. So this is also how I learned to accept all these experiences and all these people as they are as well a part of me. So no matter how I want to be fixed, I do. Every open center always wants to be like, let me be stable for a while. Yeah, when you meet that fixed piece.
Right, let me be stable for a while. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
6 months is up, honey.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like you're fixed with this right now, and you're enjoying this part of you, and that's absolutely what you identify with. That's your identity at
Yeah.
this. And how much they love looking in the mirror. This is what happens, because when they look at you and they see this part that you're pulling out, and they think that that's really you and that's everything you are, and from here comes this expectation from them that they see you in this way. So when they suddenly see this other part of you in front of other people, it's almost like they feel like you are cheating, because it's like, so in front of me,
Oh,
yeah, so in front of
I'll
me,
just say I could see that happen. I'll just put it that way. Like, you
yeah,
can't do that. It's like, well, have you met the guy that's
yeah, this is not what you are. This is how they feel. This is like, in front of me I see only this part of you, and now in front of this other person I saw this another part of you. I haven't seen it before. So definitely depends on the level of that person. Let's say, not like, some people will not have a problem, but do people do comment, like, so if you're in human design, why you do that? Or if you're like, it's a bit an old mentality. I think in the modern world that we are having now, it's, fusion is much more accepted. But I remember earlier, you're either a doctor, you're either a teacher, you're either whatever, mechanic, yeah. So
Yeah.
when you were telling people, like, I am not that old, but I remember that I was uncomfortable earlier in my years to say that, yeah, I do yoga and I teach English, and I'm also something else I do. So they will look at you, and some people legitimately would question, so what are you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Yes. And that's in the Western culture, it's like, what do you do? That's a common thing. And I'm thinking of, so I was raised at a time, or I was young at a time, I'll put it that way, where the idea was you could have a career. And my father was definitely, that's what you do. You have a career and you work until you get your pension fund. So that was the conditioning. But what's interesting is both my parents have undefined G centers, and my mom traveled a lot. And they didn't move a lot. I mean, the longest I was in two homes was when I was a child with them. So, but they also my father had a completely open splenic center, and my mom an undefined. And I could kind of see those working together, because with the undefined splenic center, it wants to be certain about things. So they almost had this double thing. And they were, trying to, like, you need to know your identity. It's like, no, you need to know your identity. But I didn't know anything. I was 17, except I felt it, like, without knowing
Mm-hmm.
what I was perceiving.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it, and I went back and forth in my career, because I mean, they didn't do anything with me in relationships except hope that I didn't get pregnant too early. That was the main thing. But I would go back and forth between following, I'll say, my own interest, and then doing something that would please them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was in a tug of war. I don't regret any of my career trajectory, because with and in that realm, I think before I started my coaching business, I don't know, I counted how many jobs I had. It was a lot, you know. But all of it was fodder for what I do now. I mean, that's the thing with 6'2", especially, but I'll say with everybody, whatever whatever the trajectory is, it's an accumulation of experiences
Yeah.
that creates the opportunity for some wisdom, perhaps later on.
Yeah. You know, that's why sometimes when I want to, I know I have a defined ego, and sometimes I'm a salesperson. So even when I want younger people to be interested in the design, it comes out of me the speech of Steve Jobs that he said in, yeah, I don't remember which university or college, but the famous speech. And he said, "You can only connect dots when you look back." And he was a
Mhm.
sixth line, and he was a sixth
Mm.
line. So he was saying, he
Mm.
was saying that my he say his fascination in calligraphy, you can now see why iPhone and all the Apple products, they have the fonts, all kind of different fonts, and you know, and he was connecting all the dots of his use, and from the perspective that he had, it was connectable. But when you look at from the beginning, they look very much unconnectable. And now that you speak,
Mm.
and I see everything, yeah, everything started with English. I was mad about English, my early age, and everything I have had later came from English. All my jobs, and English
Mhm.
is still a part of, who I am and what I do. And I think English was also a kind of, I was choosing this direction. I was resonating with this direction as also a part of my identity of, this. When I heard English, when I felt, I was like, if I will have English as a part of me, it just feels so right, you know. Until now, out of any other language, expressing myself in English feels the most natural. And
Mhm.
it was very difficult to explain this when I was younger, you know.
That's so interesting because it also occurs to me is, and I really, in a way, don't want to say this. However, in many ways, English is a universal language.
Yeah.
And so it's enabled you to move around by having,
opened opened my directions. Look, i
uh-huh,
just i
uh-huh,
got i just got out with this, opened my directions,
uh-huh,
absolutely.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
this is also what I tell my students, my English students. I say it will open the doors for you,
Mm.
because you can walk only certain paths with your national language, but when you speak English, yeah, the doors are open. So it was a direction opener to me. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
And
go ahead.
one thing I want to say again about identities. So when I speak my native language, which I'm Ukrainian, and I know Ukrainian language, now there is a big um, dilemma in my country whether you have to speak Russian or Ukrainian. So some people say you only have to speak Ukrainian because that's the country. But if my mom speaks Russian and I was born speaking Russian,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but my native language is Russian. And I think in this language, even that, I also know Ukrainian, but just so when I speak Russian or when I speak English or when I speak Italian, those are a little
Or
bit different.
Chinese? Do you speak Chinese too?
I don't. I
Oh,
really
okay.
don't. Yeah, I didn't have to learn it in order to teach
Mm.
Chinese students. Thank God,
Mhm.
because you spend a lot of years and your language is not great anyway. So
Right.
I was not really responding to it.
Mm.
So yeah, every those languages, I have a bit of different identity. People say that when you speak, you appear different, you sound different,
Mhm.
and it feels
Uh-huh.
like a personality is a bit different as well.
Interesting. The only other language that I have in my repertoire is Spanish, and it's not fluent. But when
Hmm.
I get around people who are speaking Spanish, I spent enough time with it in school, and then finally had a conversation course in college. But my brain switches, like it
Exactly.
switches to whatever Spanish it knows. It starts to think and speak when I'm around people. And once I had a friend from Iran, and she and I were walking to the bank. So I think this is maybe how that OpenG could work too for others. But at some point, she just started speaking to me in Farsi. And I looked at her like, I don't know. I don't know what you're, but I think somewhere there was this relaxation. And one of the things is we're chameleons.
Yeah.
You said earlier, reflect people back to themselves. And one of the jobs, if you want to call it that, is to cultivate self-love and really love of all things, I suppose. It's interesting for me. So, that's been I'll call it an endeavor for the last few years, but it's also a little foreign. Like, what? Do I love myself? I don't know. I love the mechanics of me. I actually love myself more easily when I'm around people who accept this being. It's harder when I run into friction. But I don't know what gets involved there.
I think if you have a completely open G, the definition of love or self-love is something that, is something not very solid. That's how I understand it. For me, with having some gates in my G center, I actually started to understand what love is and what self-love is from the opposite. Yeah. So as I started experiencing attachment, dependency, me feeling others more than I feel myself and catering them immediately, accepting them, catering to them, trying to accommodate them, be like them, which is very natural it comes naturally to an open G. Just walking from that point, I start to realize that, yeah, I can feel all these things, I can do and be all these things, but that is not love. So walking from all of that, which naturally comes as open G, yeah, and I'm so grateful for human design that I got the mechanics of it, because I literally, as it was explained to me, the mechanics of OpenG, I literally found all those things. And literally, like, before 33 years old, everything, which is looking for your direction and who you are. That's exactly what I have done. I have been to India, I have studied yoga, and there is nothing wrong with it. Only that I felt like, I will find myself there, that I don't have me, that I don't know who I am. So this was when I realized that I don't need to look for myself. I still practice yoga and all of that, but the urge, the search, the desperation, the tension is really gone.
Yeah. I wiped out the searching for love really well. So much so that, if it comes my way, it might have to really knock on the door. But as a 6-line being, that's kind of, second line body, that's not a bad thing. That got to knock on the door loudly. There's something, I was thinking for myself, where it really finally started to break for me is my oldest friend, who was my best friend for years. For me, she has a defined G center, and she also has the 48th gate, which bridges my split. And for me, the 48th gate is like the loud one of the two that bridge my split. So this person, I realized I had took her on, like, if I'm friends with her, then I'm an okay human being. That's that's how far it went. And at that time, the time that I started to kind of crack that one, I recognized, first of all, she really wasn't a good friend for me. We weren't talking that much, whatever identity that I still had with her. And we're still close and we still talk, but that's what started to break it for me is, oh, I'm my best friend. I'm the person to be my best friend for me, not that other person out there.
So cool.
Yeah, and it's I still, whenever she texts, I still kind of have this little thing like, oh. And she's a 6'2", and she's also on the cross of the Clarion. She was just born 2 years earlier, and her design is different. And we're also we're 6 and 3, so right, better to be free.
Yeah, so cool.
But-
What I have done, I have lost myself and my identity in almost all the relationships that I had before I was like 33. And I thought it's love. So literally merging and losing myself in the other person who normally was a fixed G. Yeah, I felt that if this is not happening, then this is not love. And nothing of it worked because when you lose yourself, there's not much to do. Yeah, there is no you and that person, so not much is happening actually. But not psychologically, not through psychological explanation, but exactly through the understanding of the mechanics. I literally saw that this is what is happening, what I'm doing. And this is not love.
And it's also not stable. It's like I think it creates would you agree that that's what I was experiencing with the last person that I had a sort of romantic thing going on with, is I was unstable. Like I've just fallen in so much.
Yeah.
That there was and the person, anyway, so there was an instability in me, and I literally, it didn't matter if I saw him for 5 minutes or 5 hours. I had to recover myself.
Yeah, I know
Every
exactly.
time.
I had to recover myself. I know exactly what you're saying. I know this.
Yes, and sometimes it would take a day. I mean, it was ridiculous. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? So anyway, but this is how we learn. I think that's the beauty of this. There's a desire, there's this idea that we're going to get it right. Well, no, life is how you find out what your conditioning is by experiencing it.
Exactly. I have done it as many times as possible, even to see that something is dysfunctional here. And then just as I got on the roof and just as I got the reading, it was laid in front of me, and the mechanics of the process was so clear and so obvious that the first thing that I see is how I feel with that person, how I can stay myself being next to this person. Can I express myself as myself? Yeah. Do I feel limitation? Do I feel do I need to fit in? Yeah. So so many signs already to look for, and as long the most natural and the most loving and the most what I find is good for me is where I can really be myself and stay myself. Yeah, I do feel it still happens that I do take the shape of the people, it is still a wonderful thing about OpenG that, when you are with artistic people, you are more on the creative side naturally. When you are, let's say, I don't know, with intelligent people who like to do smart talks, this part comes out. When you're it's nice, just that you don't lose it anymore. You don't try to fit in, you don't try to be this or that. This is important. This is important to see it. And I think if the direction wasn't given to my mind to observe at least where I have to look and what I have to see in terms of the explanation of what undefined G center is, I would be still a mess. Absolutely. Because I would have some observations, but especially with my open mind, I am not, it's not easy for me to conceptualize, let's say. I wouldn't be able to separate these things. I would just feel what is, not working for
Mhm.
me, definitely. But to get this classification and to look at it, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing system. And, I am friends with people who aren't engaged with this, and I can see the suffering. It's like, oh, I wish I could let you know why this is happening, but it's not for everybody. So,
yeah,
um, so I think, I don't know, I felt like, I guess I want to share another joy of it.
yeah,
So like, earlier this year, I took a 2-week road trip, and I've been on the road a few times since 2020, like for a month or 2 months or a couple of weeks. And what I love about it, first of all, I just love the landscape of our planet. I mean, for
yeah,
me, and who knows what the appreciation comes from. I don't even really care, but to drive through different landscapes and to
yes,
see that life has a way, no matter where you are on planet Earth, no matter the terrain, life finds a way. Life gets expressed differently in different places. And then I also notice, like, I can literally feel shifting energies as I
yeah,
drive through places. So when I drove from Portland, Oregon, when I left there, so I left there the same way I left Arizona, not knowing where I was going to land next. But I went from Portland through Idaho, and then into Salt Lake City, Utah, and the open road between Portland and Salt Lake City was just delightful, and even though it was 80 miles an hour, which is very fast in a car, it felt really relaxed. And as soon as I hit Salt Lake City, I felt differently. So it's the joy is to be able to sample
absolutely.
of frequencies, to be able to even be aware of these frequencies. And I don't know if it's the open G, that's just what I contributed, just ascribed it to. Or it can also be, and I mean, maybe if somebody is listening who has defined G and has the same experience, I'd be interested in comments about this. I think it's also possible, as we shed our conditioning and all that stuff that keeps us kind of confined and closed off. I guess I wonder if we just become sensitive no matter what the definition is,
Mm-hmm.
sensitive to
Absolutely,
energies. Like if
absolutely.
somebody has an undefined ego center, they're going to feel the ego
Mm-hmm.
when it comes roaring in distortion, let's say. Or for everybody, all the 30% of people that don't have a defined sacral center, well, they're tuning into, apparently, garbage fuel a lot of the time.
It's interesting because from very early age, this is what has been happening. I was also enjoying different landscapes, and as I was a flight attendant,
Oh,
incredible. Yeah, life takes you, and it's exactly just joy of seeing how different and can be, and forms and shapes of it. So I also don't know if this is just an open G thing, but seeing the forms, the different forms of the expression of it in the planet Earth, it was
mm-hmm,
all like my favorite joy.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right now I'm watching 2 shows that take place in Alaska. And
Hmm.
I was thinking, it's like, I'm getting so much pleasure from watching this whole other way of living and this
Hmm.
whole other part of the planet now. Inside, it's like, I want to go there. I want to
No,
experience
you
that.
have
But then
responded. You have responded.
but I'm like, yeah, but you're really skinny and you don't do cold weather.
You'll
But
need a good jacket. Yeah, you'll
uh,
need a good warm jacket. Mhm.
but I do want to experience the aurora borealis, so I'll have to go
Oh
somewhere in the
yeah.
winter
Oh,
and be
see this
froze.
what's going to happen at the end of this podcast. We'll hook up and go see it together. I haven't seen it either.
I'm here. I'm really cold, but I'm here.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
just the mind. I mean, I think that's, again, I am responding to something, whether it's just the joy, or do I have to act on every response? I don't know. But
Mhm.
I would like to get there.
Mm,
I've been to
I
Alaska. I was there on a cruise, and it's different than being in the land.
What I have noticed recently, I'm absolutely not choosing my places with my mind, and I'm
Mhm,
only moving where my body moves me.
mhm, yep.
So if before, when I was younger, I think it was like, oh, this is an exciting place, or my friend is going there. Yeah. Now
Mhm,
there is like not a chance. So
mm,
I was in another place and I was like, I was there in the moment, and that moment felt forever. And then suddenly that moment clicked, and I felt this forever, this now has just finished. And I was already moving back to like another place. But
uh-huh.
it wasn't at all that I was sitting and I was like, oh, this would be so exciting to go there. So I cannot even imagine how I would be sitting and saying, oh, this, because all the places are wonderful to me, all the places is
Mm,
I see them.
mhm,
But what has happened in the last 3 4 years, I am moving geometrically only when my body is already moving, and then I know, okay, I'm already
okay.
going there. So
Yeah, that's something I've really enjoyed watching, and I definitely appreciate about you. I mean, right now, where I am, the assignment, I'm in an agreed upon exchange of room for a project, and it's pretty close to the end. Like, I probably have 2 more sittings with it, and I'm like, where am I going next? I don't know. Still, I don't know. Still, I don't know. My mind wants to know, but then there's also a little bit of, I don't know. I guess when it's time to go, I'll figure it out. I mean, yesterday I went to, I was trying to go to an RV place to maybe just have, like, maybe I just need to just carry my sleeping with me and go wherever. But it's funny, uh, it's funny it didn't materialize. I mean, I didn't land in any place to sell RVs. So I'm like, plus, oh my God. But anyway, but it's the joy of even contemplating movement
Mhm.
without yet knowing where. And I know it sounds totally crazy to people. Like, do you know where you're going next? Nope.
That's so normal. But then there will be a moment. This is how it happens to me, and
Uh-huh.
I think individual, yeah, has it. Like, I literally feel it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know. And then something, and it's like I know, I know.
Mhm.
And then I literally, I tell like my mom, my friends, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing now. So when I had this crazy idea of bringing my car, all over from Italy to Turkey, it was incredible because in my mind, my mind doesn't even get excited with this idea.
Hmm.
And there was like something I can do it. Like I need the car, so I will bring it. And then I was like, and suddenly I even felt like, yeah, I have all the energy to do it, and this is exciting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, yeah, let's do it. And then as I'm doing it, I'm actually finding out what does it mean to physically go through all these countries. And if it was my mind, I would never say this is a good idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. This is definitely not a good idea. And
Yeah, yeah,
I,
my mind would never classify this as a good idea, but I had an energy, and there was like this, I know I can do it. I know I am going to do this. I don't know how it came about, but I
Mhm.
did it. It was a great experience. And yeah.
Yeah. Somebody, when in one of my other places in my before knowing, another human design teacher said something that I thought was an intelligent comment, which is, while, especially as a generator, while in the time of the not knowing, it's actually the energy is accumulating. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
building up for the movement, before movement. So there's
Oh,
a restlessness, and I
oh yeah.
also experience before it's actually time to go. Like even when I know what's next, there's a nervousness, but
Oh,
I
God.
recognize it as I kind of decided maybe yeah, I recognize it. It's like the energy's ready to move. It's not
Yes.
yet time.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolute recklessness, nervousness, and it's like I'm about to go, but I don't know the day or when my body is
Mhm.
moving. I don't know if I'm going tomorrow. Absolutely. And one thing that human design as well helps me to deal with is that when I don't know, that's okay. Because
Mm.
before, what used to happen when I wouldn't know, which means my inner strategy doesn't know, maybe I have already responded, but I don't know the method or the way
Mhm.
yet.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
then my mind would freak out so much from me not having those answers in the moment
Mhm.
and not accepting
Mhm.
this fact that I don't know, that
Uh-huh.
it would come up and feed me all this possible. So call there, talk to these people, check, find out. And I would do all kind of, at least I would lose a lot of energy, at
Uh-huh.
least at the first thing. Then I would get even more confused because running between all these mental solutions. So what has happened eventually, and I have listened a lot to this in particularly individual process, yeah, when you don't know and you don't know. And
Uh-huh.
eventually, through the experience, I eventually really learned to accept and engage this. Yes, right now I don't know, and it's okay, and it's okay. And it's literally like you are looking into that void, because when you don't know, it's a void, it's the potential, it's all black. It's like that Osho card, yeah, it's
Uh-huh. The
nothingness.
nothingness. Yeah.
It's a nothingness, yes, and it's a potential actually, and you allow it to unfold.
Yeah.
And if you don't let your fear run you over,
Mhm.
then you can actually feel this not knowing as the potential, as the energy potential behind all of it. And then something comes out of it. If you allow it, it always comes out.
Yeah, nicely, yeah, well said. No, I live close to my mom at this point, and and she's somebody who always has to know, not that she's designed to, but
Mhm.
where you going next? I don't know. And I guess I realize I've gotten comfortable saying that to her, which is a big deal.
Mhm.
Um, but it's and I think my son probably, I guess I just recognize that this way of life is not what most people are living.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
That's all. It's not
Yeah.
they're wrong, not I'm wrong. It's just it's odd. It's different.
It's
Um,
different. Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to say about it? You actually had something about just the biology that you wanted to mention. Do you still
Yeah,
feel
actually, I don't know. How do you feel? Are we going to do another part of OpenG? How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Mm. Not
Have
really.
we, I mean, I
So
think we covered a lot of
if
ground here.
if there is a second part coming, then I would absolutely love to talk big deal about wrong places, right places, how they feel. So I don't know, maybe we can do it later, because I think if to jump on that horse, that's a very
Yeah.
big, and I have a lot of examples for that. And wrong people, again, so much to say here, and how I personally feel them also
Mhm.
geometrically, or yeah, it's a big topic.
Okay.
So maybe we can discuss this
Yeah.
later. About the biological correlation, even when you just look at the centers as you go through the definite book of human design, yeah, like it
Mhm.
says liver, and even
Blood.
even blood, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So apparently, in some cultures, in some ancient cultures, some cultures thought that soul resides in liver, And it does make sense that when people get intoxicated, normally, traditionally with alcohol, and it destroys the liver and they are losing the self or identity, makes sense, I think. Losing the identity through intoxication and destruction of the liver. And this resonates a lot with me. I don't know, when I heard this, this was immediately a part of me recognizing it like as truth. And then the thing about me, I don't know if this is individual thing but I also heard that OpenG Center people are not recommended to, because if your liver, let's say, is not defined, it's like your liver doesn't know how to deal with, maybe today it deals well with intoxication and tomorrow it doesn't. This would be, so
at this point, if alcohol is offered, I'll just ask, do you have a child size? But I think also what I picked up and heard, which I thought, oh, there wasn't intelligent in the belief that the liver houses the soul, because the G center is the seat of the self.
Yeah.
That's where the monopole is. So, again, and that's the brilliance of so many things in life, even without the knowledge. That I see that as perhaps an intelligent interpretation.
Yeah, it resonates very much with me. And in terms of intoxication, it just physically, my body always resists it. I definitely tried and never was able. My body stops me before I'm going any further. I don't know. I have 36, 34, 57 on both body and the personality. So that also might be the spleen is, this is not healthy, don't do it or whatever. But I just physically don't feel well when the moment I am starting to feel that I'm being intoxicated. It's literally like I cannot feel myself, or I'm not in touch with myself, and that just doesn't feel right. I'm not relaxing. So I'm not relaxing from all this process, because alcohol should make you lose. Yeah. So maybe a little bit, a very tiny bit of it can make me lose, but it's literally like a very small dose. And then whenever I'm just a bit intoxicated, that's just not fun for me at all. So I just removed the tag of fun from drinking, and I'm absolutely like, that's just not fun. I'm trying to let people know, it's just not fun for me. So just I can, you're fine. And then also, this is another thing. I don't enjoy being around the people who are drinking, because as they start losing it, and
they
it's
do.
fun for them.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I know, and because I'm noise sensitive, so what I'm aware of is the volume of voice goes up. The volume, more drinking, the louder people get. Like they do lose the salt, I guess, the center, I suppose, might be a way to say it, and they lose awareness, perhaps too. Oh, there's a dog. Can you hear the dog?
Yes. And the loudness you were talking about. So the dog, is working. Yeah, exactly. Like I can feel how they are out of themselves, and it's not fun as well. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, some things probably being delivered. What occurs to me, if we do another episode besides wrong place, wrong people, it might be interesting. And again, I don't know if and when we would bring people, but at some point to bring one or two people with a defined G, just to see if there's what they would have to say. But it might also be like the open G or undefined G with other open centers. Like, how do those things work in harmony? So in my design, it's open G, undefined ego, and undefined solar plexus, which is said to be the heartbreak hotel. Which, so avoiding truth and confrontation, wanting the juiciness of love, where's my direction? And by the way, I need to know all of that in order to prove I know what I'm doing.
That's just the keynoting of all those open centers is so it's so depressing. It's like,
Oh, and I'm under mental pressure and physical pressure to have it all together.
that's like the symptoms, those are like the symptoms. And you know what I want to say? I have a defined ego.
Yep.
But from what I know and from what I heard from others, and a little bit what I heard from what Ra said, it's harder to love yourself with a defined ego.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it is harder to love yourself
Okay.
because defined ego brings
Prove.
expectations on me. I am demanding so much from me, so that doesn't help me to love myself at all.
Yeah. I can see that because the woman I whose home I'm in has the same channel you have, the 2644, and I think she has the fine G center, but I can hear that piece of her that needs to feel, has that pressure to prove. And you're both generators, so it's really, and she has a 3457 as well.
It's sacrificing the energy in order to get that result, and that's not loving yourself. Absolutely. And from time to time, that what happens when you have the ego defined, you will, whether you have the energy or you don't have the energy, you will do what your ego says you do, and then you spend time recovering, and that's very far from self-love.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this feels like a good way to, does it feel like we're
Yeah, I felt like
we've got a container.
Just wrapped it up. We are like wrapping it up. Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't know what to say. Except wrap it up. Do you have anything that comes to you?
I think this is what we just talked about, self-love. This is all what it is about, like like learning about who you are, learning about what you are not, and learning to accept and love yourself. This is and here we are just doing it mechanically, as Ra used these terms. Like we're looking at the mechanics of it. It's so amazing that you can actually see how it actually designed, where it's coming from, and what the openness does. But it's all about self-love, actually.
In both directions. I mean, for me, I wrote a piece, it's a short piece, no choices in the code. And there's no choice in the openness as well as the definition, and neither one of them are good or bad. They're just, one place you go to school and you make it, and the other place is you, but you still gotta even learn what that is. So yay. And I was like, well, I don't know where to find us, but we're beginning. And it's really nice. And one of the things I appreciate is I don't feel the pressure from your defined ego, which is unusual.
I had some work done.
You had some work done.
Yes, like people who do the plastic surgery, I had some work done. So I mean, 10 years in experiment, and I have looked into the damage that my ego does to me, and I know when I'm pushing. I know when I'm pushing. I know how it comes out of me when I'm pushing. And particularly I told you already this before, particularly with the people I love and adore, I protect them from my ego. I do consciously do that. So if I was the boss and I would need things to be done, I would not be protective, and I would be like most probably using my ego to, to get the results and everything. But the people that I love and care for, and in the situations when I'm really thriving to be myself, I do protect myself and others from the pushiness of my ego. Yeah, I'm aware
Yeah,
of
and
that.
that's not even its role, right? It's just about willpower, with having the will or not. It's, you know, and then the material playing. But it's
Yeah,
interesting.
but sometimes ego can just has its own ride, and the transits can, like, I can feel the transits as well. And sometimes I start feeling my ego, and I'm just like not choosing to ride on it on that moment. I'm like, I will tune into the other center. So I'll just like tune into my sacral for the moment. I'll
Uh-huh.
just like, it's okay. We're gonna be ambitious tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Right. Yes.
Yes, because ego center is is not something that is supposed to be on 24 hours.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So yeah.
Maybe we can move into that next. Maybe we can bring back the G2, but I don't know, it's occurring to me because it's defined in you and it's undefined in me, except that my
Mm.
personality sun lives there. So it's a very weird, it's an interesting experience.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the biggest conditioning from the world. And this is an interesting talk as well from both sides. Yeah, defined and undefined.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
Well,
let's see what happens next.
let's see the OG girls over and
The
out.
OG girls. So cool. Oh, yeah. Was a good start.